Okay, do you see my screen?
Good.
Okay, unfortunately, the statue has not purchased the second version of the HoloLens. So he's a little behind on the tech, and he's using a Magic Leap remote for a HoloLens headset. So
Wait, the statue is identifying as a male now?
It's
I didn't know that. I did
no.
not know that. So
it's a we're unsure of the gender of the statue currently.
okay.
But nevertheless, we are excited to have you tonight at the New York Augmented Reality Meetup. Thank you all for joining. Okay, Dan joined here as well. Sorry. Dan is co-host. Sweet. Should we get started, Barry?
Everyone's looking forward to this. Yeah, everyone's looking forward to the snow. So hopefully they can huddle around the meetup tonight.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. So good to see a lot of your names on the chat. Unfortunately, I can't see some of your faces due to the Zoom bombing we had at the last meetup, which was unfortunate, but we're still here and we have a great event for you tonight. So we are excited to share. We disabled the chat to everyone. So you can message me directly, but you can't message one another. We disabled the microphone and the video camera as well. But if you have anything you'd like to share with the group, message me directly and I can relay the message. Let's see. Could you hear audio okay, Barry? Someone said they can't hear audio. Is it going through?
You sound loud and clear to me.
Okay, cool. So it's really good to have everyone here. We have a great event for you tonight with awesome speakers. Barry and I think you're going to love it. So thank you very much for joining. For tonight's event, I'm going to start out by introducing our wonderful co-organizer, Barry Seff. Then I'll share some of the latest industry happenings and news from the past month. And then we'll go into tonight's presentations where we'll have the opportunity to hear from some incredible speakers from across the industry. Now I'd like to take a moment to thank Barry Seff, the co-organizer of the Meetup group, for his hard work and dedication for making these events possible. Thank you, Barry, for your help. Without your help, the events wouldn't be the same. So if you could share some words of wisdom with the group, it would be our greatest pleasure to learn from you.
Words of wisdom. Well, I just think it's been exciting entry to the year, and hopefully we'll see a lot more great innovations and bring you some more great speakers. And I'll give just a little pep talk that those affected by some of the cuts in the AR industry. We know it's rough, but Andy and myself are glad to try to help you. People reach out to us for looking for connections and job leads and such. So feel free to do so. And you'll put the link out there, or just email us or contact us after. But keep your head up. That's it.
Barry, you want to put your email in the chat?
For sure, I will do that.
Now I'd like to touch on some of the latest industry insights. And if you'd like some more information, feel free to send me a message. So there's some good events coming up. AWE, the Augmented World Expo, although it's on May 31st, they had a press release that they announced their initial speaker lineup and agenda. So if you go to the AWE website, you could see who's going to be speaking. So that could be very interesting. Next, the Game Developer Conference is in San Francisco on March 20th to 24th. So you can meet some of the companies powering augmented reality and the gaming industry. And then lastly, South by Southwest is on March 12th, and they have an entire track dedicated to augmented and mixed reality technology with sessions about those topics. So you can look into all these and find something that piques your interest. Thank you for putting your email there, Barry. Some funding. So Fektar is from Netherlands, raised about $2 million for an AR creation platform. So it looks like over here in the Fektar studio, you have, let's see how this works. One studio, and you could deploy to all these different devices, which is pretty cool. And then Xander Glasses does a AR captioning through Vuzix. Unclear on how well it works, but that's been a pretty popular topic these days. So they raised $1.4 million for their concept. And then lastly, Mowari raised $6.5 million for cloud streaming 3D models in augmented reality. So for more high definition 3D content in AR with potentially less of less intensive like memory to download the app. You can just stream the good models. And some of the latest news before we continue to move forward. Tencent scrap plans for their headset, and according to the Wall Street Journal, they're in discussions with Meta to distribute the Quest 2 across China. Meta also closed its deal with Within. Snap introduced ray casting on Lens Studio for better lighting on 3D models. So you could see the left is before and after. I saw a better demonstration, but here you could see, if you look closely, there's some shadows and stuff. There's like a little reflection there that could add a lot of value if you're looking to do online shopping. And then Google's head of AR left to focus on building another company, and Google's splitting their AR division into 2 segments, and they launched Immersive Stream for XR. So that's out of beta, and it's also enabling developers to stream high quality 3D models for web AR and native experiences. And then lastly, the app of the month is called Hyperspace. Definitely message me if you want the link. It's a very cool app to experiment with the LiDAR sensor on the iPhone. I'll put this in the chat anyway, so you can play around with it after the meetup. Now, without further ado, I'm excited to introduce tonight's presenters, those who are progressing the industry forward and working towards making the impossible a reality. And it's an honor to have them here with us tonight. After each presentation, we'll have a 5-minute Q&A, so feel free to message me your question directly. And I'd be glad to share it with the speaker after the talk. And once again, for those who join late, we have to disable the chat to everyone, unfortunately, but message me and I will share your chat with the group. And first, we're excited to introduce Jeferson Araujo. He is a talented AR developer who specializes in creating effects for social media platforms such as Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat. Jeferson's work has gained worldwide recognition thanks to his creation of the first full body tattoo AR effect on Instagram known as Rampage. His background is in architecture and urbanism, which gives him a unique approach and a keen eye for design, which he applies to every project he works on. His innovative and creative approach has caught the attention of global celebrities, leading to his work being used by some of the world's most recognizable faces. Today, his skills are in high demand from global brands such as Disney, Amazon, Paramount, and Vogue magazine. His ability to create highly engaging and immersive AR experiences has made him a sought-after talent in the industry. Jeferson remains dedicated to exploring new ideas, technologies, with the goal of staying ahead of the curve in the ever-evolving field of AR. When he's not creating AR effects, Jeferson enjoys traveling the world, exploring new cultures, and seeking out new experiences. A true creative at heart, and his passion for AR made him a true innovator in the industry. Thank you, Jeferson, for being here with us tonight and sharing your skills.
Hello.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Andy.
Thank you for being with us.
I'm going to share my screen. I made a presentation for tonight. So it's here.
Looks
I'm
good.
just disabled here. Can you see my screen? Okay. Okay, so my name is Jefferson. I am from Brazil. I work remotely from here to brands worldwide. And today I'm going to show you some of my favorite work and personal projects, as well as my background. So here are some data. I am an official lens creator for Snapchat and also certified by Meta. I have created more than 100 effects and I have a lot of impressions on them. Some of my clients include Disney, Pat McGrath, Amazon, Cartier, Meta, Netflix, Red Bull, and Ray-Ban. I'll send a link of my portfolio later if you want to check it out. So my name is Jefferson and I am an AR developer specialized in creating effects for social platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat. My background in architecture gave me an unique perspective and eye for design that I apply on every project I worked on. So when I was finishing my graduation in architecture, I started practicing AR as a hobby. And then it gained so much visibility that I shifted my career before ending graduation. So my specialization is character design and makeup try-on, but we do every kind of effect, such as gaming, product try-on, everything. We do every kind of AR projects. So here are my favorite commercial work and also some of my personal projects. Starting off with Rampage, some of you may know this effect from Instagram. It took all over social media when it was released, and it was a big step on my career. I got noticed by a lot of brands, including Disney. That was my first big client, and from there, I never stopped working like full-time AR creator. So this one I made for Vogue magazine in Brazil. It uses face tracking to simulate full body tracking, which is not available on Instagram. So I had to make something to look like it was being tracked to the body. So it was used on a booth on the event, and the people who walked there could use it live. This is Ruben Ireland. I used it when the body segmentation, when it was released, to create this feel of having this black outfit. And this is House of Anitta, a Brazilian singer, and it uses sky segmentation from TikTok. This was actually my first commercial project for TikTok. It was commissioned by them. And I used AI to make the body animation. I used a video of her dancing and then added it to my 3D model. This is a digital trophy for the Itaú Bank from Brazil. In the past, they used to give their staff, who are the best ones, they gave them trophies. But now, thinking about the environment, they started giving AR trophies instead of physical ones. So they started hiring me to create those trophies in 3D and trying to be as realistic as possible. In the front camera, they have the option to position and pretend they are holding the trophy. So they have their selfie because they made a research and people didn't actually keep the trophy. So it was more of a waste of plastic and material. This is Collide, makeup try-on I made for an eyeshadow brands. and it features full face makeup. Makeup was the original reason I started working with AR. I like makeup very much, but didn't want to do on myself. So I started creating and practicing, and this is where I got some initial recognition. And this is a roulette for Amazon, featuring the main advantages of the Amazon Prime plan. So I made this for a Brazilian campaign where they show off all of those reasons why you should subscribe to their Amazon Prime plan. This is for Araujo, a shoes and bags brand from Brazil. They made this for Instagram to showcase some of their products. So we made like headpieces with their purses and their shoes. This is Junji Ito's Tommy. This is when Instagram released render passes, so we can make post-processing more complicated post-processings. So this is all in real time, and it still is one of a kind on Instagram. Because to get this look, usually you use machine learning, and this is just a regular AR. This was my first work for Disney, that it was for the Cruella movie release. I had created a 3D hair model, but they preferred to keep the user's hair. And so we did this makeup transformations, transform the user to Cruella. This is one of my latest work. It's for the song Made You Look by Meghan Trainor. It was released on Snapchat. So I used the bald machine learning model. You can actually see it here, that he's bald on the background. And then I created this 3D model and used their physics to simulate real hair bouncing. This is Shiba Inu, another character design project of mine. This one is a personal project. It's about my dog. And this is only using face deformation and texturing. There's no actual 3D models here. It's just the user face deformed and painted over. This one is for Coachella. This one was also used on booths on the event. So people could dance and record themselves. This effect works for full body as it uses user segmentation as well. This one is painted by Fame, inspired by New York drag queen Miss Fame. So it has 3D hair and makeup, and it hides the eyebrows, and it has all this concepting around the drag queen culture, which I love. Yeah, so it was a tribute to her. And that's my presentation. I'm here if you have any questions, and would love if you could check it out, the rest of my portfolio on my website. I'm going to send it here on the chat. And thanks for watching.
Thank you, Jefferson. That was excellent. We have some questions. Hold on 1 minute. Okay, the first question. Thanks for sending your link. Once I'm just trying to find from Edward. What technologies and process did you use to leverage AI to create the dancing, or any AI that you use to render AR? How is the AR connected to an AI model to the rent? How are you connecting the AR to an AI model to the rendering engine?
You mean for the dancing effect?
Yes.
Yeah, actually it was not an AI model. It was an AI motion capture website that I used. So I created the 3D model in T-pose and then uploaded a video to this website, and then it copied the moves of the dance from her to the 3D model. So we didn't need any mocap suite to create the movements, just a video, and then AI recognized the bonus and added to the 3D model.
Is Deep Pose is that a library that's built into the platform used to develop, or is that something third party?
No, T-pose, it means the character is in T-pose like this with the
Okay,
arms open. Yeah.
okay. Oh, I thought you said Deep Pose. Okay,
No.
good. Another question from Christopher. From an intellectual property perspective, do you own the exclusive rights to your AR creations? And if so, are you licensing your products to clients on a non-exclusive basis?
Yeah, on my most unique designs, I actually registered it because I had some issues with companies copying my designs in the past. So when I notice an effect is getting a lot of exposure, I run and register it before I have any issues. I had some problems in the past with companies copying my whole effect and then just adding their brand to it. So that never happened anymore. And as for my clients, usually they have the rights to their characters or designs. So I don't do anything about this. It's on their end. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Another question. So how do you come up with your ideas? Do you have, let's say a brand approaches you, do you have some type of concept first, or do you take the brand and then work on a concept from that? Yeah. What's your process like?
No, usually I develop a process, and also I try to think about the final product before I start designing, because if I don't do, I will never stop adding elements to the design. So for me, it's better to have a clear idea of what I want from the final product, and then build a color palette so everything will look good together, and also a mood board to know which feeling I want the user to have. And from that, I develop the concept. And if it's a character, I try to draw it in 2D first, and then I get it in 3D space, and after that in AR.
Awesome. Thank you. Just one more question. So how do you decide what technologies to use when you're starting a new project?
Yeah, first I started with Meta Spark AR because I used to have a passion for photography, and so I wanted to create camera styles like vintage film and everything like that. And from that, I started getting some exposure on social media, and then I shifted my career to that because I started getting commissioned, and there was no turning back, and I was just a student, so I wouldn't say no for some extra money. And then the proposals started to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and so I got invited by Snapchat to work with them. And then I was also invited to the TikTok beta, so that's how it happened.
What would be some advice you would give someone that's just starting out in augmented reality industry?
Yeah, I would advise to always have a contract, and also to build your own ideas, even if it's based on other creators. Don't do copies, because being authentic will make you stand out.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jeferson, for joining us tonight. You have your portfolio and your link you sent. That's really great. Awesome work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting and having me here tonight.
Yeah, it was our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. So I am going to, yeah, that was really great, Jeferson. Thank you. Okay. Next up, I'm going to butcher the name, but I will do my best. I apologize, Mugur, but next up, we have Mugur, Geana, and Dan Kernuska with us. I have bios for both of them. So when Mugur is not researching how we learn and communicate about health, Dr. Mugur Geana can be found tinkering with technology, flying an airplane in virtual reality, or behind a video camera. Originally he's from Romania. Mugur is a lifelong learner with a medical doctor's degree and a PhD in health communication. He is an associate professor at the University of Kansas and the director of the Center for Health Communication to Underserved Populations. Mugur strongly believes in accelerated technology adoption, especially those supporting immersive visual environments for their potential to improve the communication and understanding of complex health concepts. His research has been published in top journals and showcased at national and international conferences. This AR study will be presented in May, the one they'll be sharing tonight. It will be presented in May in Toronto, Canada at the 2023 conference of the International Communication Association. And with Mugur, we have Dan Cernuska, Associate Professor of Practice, and serves as instructional designer for the College of Health Professions at North Dakota State University. As instructional designer, he consults with faculty from pharmacy, nursing, and public health on implementation of effective instructional strategies. Dr. Cernuska is also highly involved in collaborative educational research, both within and outside NDSU on topics related to conceptual understanding, design-based research, educational gaming, and integration of innovative instructional technologies in the instructional process. Both backgrounds seem very interesting, and it's an honor to have you both with us tonight to learn some more about your augmented reality research. Thank you for joining us.
All right, hello everybody. So I'm just gonna share my screen right now. Let me know if you're able to.
Welcome,
see
Dan.
it.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, you guys see my screen? We're
Yeah.
good? Yeah. Well, it is an honor. Actually, it was an unexpected pleasure when Andy reached out to me after he noticed a press release by KU discussing this study. So I'm so much looking forward to be here with you. And also I was excited to listen to Jeferson and his phenomenal, augmented reality work. And that's great. We're moving a little bit from excellence in design to learning how people learn using augmented reality. And let me see, let me give you an outline of our presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about why we did this study, its significance, innovation, the research method that we used, the findings, and final conclusion. I promise this is not going to be one of those boring, I hope, academic presentations. So both Dan and I hope to keep you engaged. I'm going to talk a little bit about the study, and then Dan is going to talk about our results. Why doing this study? I think it all started with, and something that all of you are familiar, the pandemic really changed how students learn and how instructors teach. I still remember it was right after the spring break 2020, when in less than 14 days, we have to move everything from in-person instruction to online. Major challenges, both on faculty and students. And it went like that for 2 years. And then we came back and we found out that engagement of the students with learning was not the one that we're used to. So we really understood as instructors that we need to change things in order to increase engagement to promote learning. Also, another factor that promoted this research is the access to hardware and software solutions which were more accessible to the general public. The LiDAR camera on the iPhones, the Adobe Aero, all those software and hardware innovations that are accessible to anyone, actually it's making augmented reality more accessible. And finally, immersive environments and education. I don't know if you're aware, but education is, after gaming, the industry that has adopted mixed reality at the fastest pace. So those are the premises that made Dan and I start thinking about, how can we use this to actually do a little bit of research and trying to understand how students learn using augmented reality, especially when we're talking about structured information delivery. And that's information that is presented as part of a course or part of a lecture. And also, how does it compare with what we consider the standard of remote learning, which is video, okay? Lecture videos. So that was the significance of our study. In terms of innovation, one of the problems with augmented reality in research is how do you measure engagement, okay? Doing eye tracking, it's rather difficult in augmented reality and virtual reality, although technological progress has been made. Also, we use the mixed method approach, so not only a quantitative metric, but also we did interview. It was qualitative approach to try to better understand how these students interact with our model. And finally, which was the one that I mentioned before, we use consumer-grade technology to do all of this. Nothing specific, nothing out of the ordinary, just the regular iPhone or iPad, and we use Adobe Aero to design the entire intervention. So these were, okay, we have a poll here, and the question is, do you think augmented reality can help schools teach students? And please go ahead and answer yes or no. And this was unexpected. All right, and
I have to launch it again, sorry.
okay, please do it again. All right, we're doing.
Results are coming in.
That's great.
Here it is.
I'm going to write this down. That's 6%. No. This is great. Thank you very much. Okay, So I'm not going to read all these questions, okay, because I'm going to give you a link to the poster if you're really interested in finding more about this. But the idea is we're really trying to understand what are the difference between the mediums in users' evaluation of the delivery method. And this is not the first time research such as this compared augmented or virtual reality with video has been done, but it was the first time in which we approach measuring engagement with augmented reality a little bit different than the way it is usually done. Okay. Also, we are trying to understand the difference in perceived user information retention. And finally, how do they think, what do participants think about the instructional environment as a learning tool? So the research method, we conducted an experiment that consisted of 64 participants, which all were undergraduates at sophomore and junior levels in the School of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of Kansas. We used two arms. One was a video arm and the other one an augmented reality arm. And in addition to these two exposure to the experimental treatments, we used semi-structured interviews with all the participants. And although these guys were from the School of Journalism, we decided not to use a journalist topic, but we decided to use COVID-19 as the topic for two reasons. First of all, because of its actuality, and second, because it will allow us to develop the graphical elements that will promote engagement in AR, in the AR environment, and also attention for the video environment. What was specific about this study is that the video arm had a standardized length of the video. It lasted for 230 seconds. So everybody in the video arm was exposed to 230 seconds of treatment. In the augmented reality arm, on the other hand, we gave people the latitude to advance the lecture at their own pace, to explore the model. And we have everything between 183 seconds to 400 seconds of engagement. So how did we measure all of this? Well, the operationalization for the video, we use eye tracking, in which we looked at where people were not only were looking, but how much time they were spending looking at different elements. And you see here the video that we use with a model of the coronavirus. It was rotating, it was a 3D model, but presented on a 2D environment. So we use eye tracking to measure attention and engagement with the graphical model in the video. For the augmented reality, the students were exposed to it using iPad Pro, and you can see on the right side of the screen the image they were seeing through the iPad of exactly the same graphical model, but this time suspended in the middle of the room. And on the left, you can see an image taken by a camera in the room of the position of the body and what they're doing. So we combine the data from the iPad camera that was recording interaction and the room camera to try to assess the level of engagement in terms of time spending exploring the 3D model, the augmented reality model. The narration was exactly the same in both of them. The information was exactly the same. And we did some pre and post tests to try to measure the level of information retention. So Dan, why don't you talk a little bit about the findings?
Yeah, so certainly the goal was to look, what happens from pre to post. We had a pre-test and a post-test, the same types of questions. And as you can see on this graph, what grabbed my attention, and for the researcher, this is like a candy store for a kid. When you see an interaction, everything is, oh, something is good there, or at least different. So basically what this graphic shows, the greenish, yellowish, brownish, whenever is the color on your screen, line shows the video group or video arm. They started below, as prior knowledge, the augmented reality AR group, but they ended up higher than them. So that's why the interaction happens. However, if when we looked at the pre-test only, post-test only, no statistical significant difference. You can see 15, 16, 22% of total knowledge, so the mean knowledge scores. But, and also when we looked at each of them, pre-test, post-test, both group gained significantly from pre to post-test. So both of them learned. Anyway, when we looked at the gain, and just compare the gain for the video group and the AR group, the gain was statistically significant. So was as a researcher, was an interesting one, but on the other hand, was like, oops, our second hypothesis was not accepted, so was rejected basically, because the video group gained statistically significantly more than the AR group. So then the question was, let's look at the other set of data to see why that it's happened and what the data is showing up. So in the next slide, we looked at the engagement. So Mugur just explained how they were measured. On the left side, It's a more objective measure, eye tracking, engagement, and actual fixation on the different parts of the video that were significant for what the narration was, where on the right side is the engagement estimated based on the time that the user spent by looking at the actual model. And you can see the difference. I mean, it's clear that the attention, eye tracking data was pretty much in the same range with variation from user to user, while the AR was mainly showing a huge, differences between the engagement for different users, for different participants. And while we don't have statistical data for this, this is more a qualitative research, was still the best way for us to look a little bit and say, well, is there a difference that can explain what's happening here? And to answer that question, besides this engagement, we overlapped on the engagement, the actual results. So what you see there is for each student, you see the gain. Everything that it's an arrow going up, it's showing pretty much a gain from pre to post, and everything that's reversed will show a loss in the knowledge. So, or if it's just a dot, means they basically had the same score at the pre and post. So if you look at the two sides, clearly the video side was mostly on the gaining side, on the gaining part, and the more they, the higher the fixation, typically the higher the gain, with only one participant staying pretty much at the same level. While on the AR side, you can see all kinds of, variation, a lot of dots. That means a lot of students remain the same, and about 3 of them actually lost. But what's interesting, if you compare the two, here the highest the engagement with the model was, so the highest time, the time they spent with the model, the lowest in a way the gain in knowledge. So the ones that actually spend less time moving around and trying to look at the model and trying to move around and see each side of it because they could, it looks like they started to lose a little bit track of what actually was conveying to them as information. And this was actually confirming their answers to the open-ended questions at the end. So basically, all the students in the AR indicated that, yeah, it was more interactive. I liked, the fact that I was able to go around. I liked the fact that I was able to interact, but some of them actually said, well, I was so much focused on moving around that I kind of skipped sometimes the audio and I wasn't paying the attention. So basically, while this is not a statistical proved kind of analysis, we concluded that AR is still a viable environment because students in the AR group gain from pre to post statistically significant, basically the same as the students in the video group. Because of the accessibility of the mobile devices, this is actually a very feasible approach for distance learning. It can be implemented in distance learning approach and can add a little bit of engagement because that's the main problem with distance learning. But certainly we have to account when we want to use AR for instruction that this novelty might create some distractors. And certainly that can have a not negative, but less strong impact on the retention of information. But if you think of a whole instructional process, if you have a couple of boring experience with video, it's very likely that we'll start to pay attention to video all the times, while with AR, it's possible, these are hypotheses that we'll need to test in future research. It's possible that as the students learn the features and the novelty kind of, it's not that impacting their engagement, they will keep, increasing their attention to the actual information conveyed. Certainly, a little bit of a downside of this strategy for instruction is you need to have instructors that have specialized knowledge or support to create, release, and maintain this kind of environment. But, well, that's what research is for, to help us find what's happening today and just create new opportunities for new research questions. So we are trying to think further and just look at the degree to what increased agency of AR for the students and instructor can promote retention and can promote engagement in the instruction. And certainly this was something that happened in an experiment. Was you had the experience, now you had the testing, but in the real life, in educational environments, what's important is what are the effects of this type of engagement on medium and long-term memory, because in the end, we want to have some retention long-term or at least medium-term.
Just to add something here is that for almost all of the students who were part of this study, this was their first experience with augmented reality. A couple of them played Pokemon before, but other than that, this was definitely the first experience. So that's one of the reasons the novelty really played an issue. And to finish on a positive note, thinking about the quiz the poll that you just did, the answer is yes, we can educate students using augmented reality. Is it better than video? Right now, probably not. But like everything else, it's improving. Thank you very much, guys.
And also, I want to add here, this is about information retention, but if we look at the whole picture of what learning is, well, there are other aspects where, engagement with the model can add, serious value to the, learning process.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. We just had that was really fascinating and amazing research. Jacqueline Kumar mentioned that there was a similar finding for VR in education, and it's very interesting and helpful as we all move forward in the mixed reality industry and consider appropriate use cases, especially for education. Yeah. So I also had a question that came from Barry, if you don't mind me asking, and we only have room for maybe 2 questions, but the one from Barry is, are there any additional features for the augmented reality that could have made the content more conducive for learning, such as spatial audio or haptics or of that sort?
Yeah, definitely, yes. We had spatial audio, by the way, that was included. One thing we did not have, like I said, this was a structured experience, learning experience. They had to follow a specific pattern that was given to them. Okay, one of the things that we learned through the qualitative interviews was that students, we said, oh, I would rather go and push that button and listen to that instead of waiting here until that guy finished talking. Okay, so that was one of the limitations, and that's why our next research would look at agency and how that matters. The other thing, and this was a limitation of the software of Araujo, once you start a sound file, you cannot do anything else until it finishes. There's no way of stopping it. Okay, so that was definitely one of the limitations of the software that we use. But yes, there were things that we could have done to improve it.
Awesome. Tobias wants to know if you can share the paper or the link to the paper on the chat, or the press release would be great.
Yeah, I'm gonna share the press release. And also one thing is, I've stopped sharing my screen. I'll post also a link to our augmented reality for the Center for Excellence in Health Communication to our underserved populations. So we're running the first research exhibition that is done fully in augmented reality. So we have 6 posters, including the one that we just presented, and you'll be able to see some very cool things. So I'm gonna share that in the chat as well.
Okay, amazing. Okay. And then one more question. What made you choose AR, video as the medium to compare against AR? Did you consider audio based or books or things like that?
No, that's a really good question. And there's been research looking at books, there's research looking at video, there's research looking at audio only. We choose video because we are thinking in terms of distance learning, and video lectures have become, especially with the pandemic, the standard for distance learning, especially for asynchronous learning. So that's why we use video and compare that with ER.
And also video use the same 3D model in 2D, which is, something that's happening. So we wanted to see if the actual engagement with the model in the physical space makes a difference or not, and to what degree. So because you can have this 3D on 2D, what we do with Zoom, and it's done and it's common, but the difference is where is the line where or when, if you really push it as an AR, will make a difference.
Sure. Amazing. Well, thank you guys both for joining us. It was really great having you on. Definitely share your contact info or the press release or whatnot, so folks could stay informed with your work. Oh, sorry, one question from Christopher Jones. And just quickly, do you have any research comparing eye movement in the video? Any research comparing eye movement in the video and AR environment to eye movement in a traditional learning environment? If not, what was the baseline established for the eye movement data?
So I wish I had, because there was no way for us to do eye tracking on the iPad. If anybody has any resources and knows how to do that, that will be great. Like I said, we use eye tracking. So again, this study, it's about interaction and engagement with the graphical model. Okay, so we use eye tracking to measure where to look, to see where students were looking and for how long. This is on the video part. On the augmented reality part, we use a combination of cameras. So we were seeing where students were moving around. And also, so that was the camera that was in the room. And also we filmed the entire intervention with the camera on the iPad. Okay, so we combine both of them to try to assess the level of engagement with the model. Because if a student was just sitting there in the back, not doing anything, just listening to the audio, it was different than the student who was actually actively moving and looking around in the room. I mean, that thing was huge in that room, and they could explore it and they could interact with it.
Awesome. Thank you, Mugur. Thank you, Dan, for joining us this evening. Okay, I am excited to introduce our next presenter that we have with us, Jonathan Joseph, the CEO of Little Red Fashion, the first edtech and publishing company focused on teaching kids K through 12 about through fashion. He's the author of their first book, The Little Red Dress, and it's the first augmented reality kids book about fashion in history, earning praise from industry pillars like Fern Mollis, the CFDA, and literary critics alike. Jonathan got into AR-driven education directly from challenges he faced as a young learner with ADHD and cerebral palsy. He lives in Los Angeles and Connecticut and loves hiking, reading, opera, podcasts, and painting. His fine art practice, J. Joseph Studio, specializes in medium and large format abstract works. With that, I am very excited to introduce Jonathan. Thank you for having us. Thank you for being here tonight and joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm very excited. I love the research that Mugur and Dan are doing. That's clearly right up my alley. I'm very excited to share a little bit of what we're doing at Little Red Fashion in terms of integrating augmented reality for younger kids, especially because a lot of the things I see are, STEM and really focused often on college educated students or college students or high school students. And for me, it was really important to use augmented reality to bring a creative discipline to life. And with that, I'm going to share my screen and give you all a little bit of a look into what we're doing here at Little Red Fashion. Fashion is a lens to understanding, whether it's understanding the world around you, understanding yourself, your culture, your heritage, and your family. Fashion is our way of telling stories and a way of navigating the world. I'm Jonathan Joseph, and this is The Little Red Dress. It's about the stories that this dress holds and the many lives this dress leads throughout its journey. When thinking about how I use augmented reality to tell important stories, and use that AR as an opportunity to dive into the weeds on the what and the how, I realized that we're opening doors for kids to see that the things they may not have realized are possible. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do as educators. What post-reality has been able to do is really distill our core ethos at Little Red Fashion, which is that fashion is for everyone. Augmented reality allows parents, children, and educators to collectively and collaboratively read and work through these stories and narratives together, so that fashion in its complexity becomes a perfect pairing with augmented reality, because we can use it to add nuance to the conversation without disrupting the flow of stories themselves and the storytelling within our beautifully illustrated printed books. Learn more about us and secure your copy at littleredfashion.com. Okay. Thanks for taking a look at that. That is the trailer for The Little Red Dress, our book. One of the most exciting things about being in the fashion space, it really is the fact that XR, especially since the pandemic, has really become a much more common conversation starter. And it's something that when I first had the idea for Little Red Fashion a number of years ago, wasn't even on my radar. We actually came to the augmented reality side of our business at the request of booksellers, because being an independent publisher, I have very regular conversations with a lot of booksellers to understand what educators, parents, and children, what that overlapping Venn diagram looks like for them when it comes to AR. And the overwhelming feedback from dozens of bookshop owners and executives within stores like Barnes & Noble is a lot of AR comes across to parents as gimmicky. Why am I paying extra for this book that has these enhancements where there's no educational value perceived? And I think, as we say, even with the research that we just saw from Mugur and Dan, it's not very cut and dry. This is still the wild, wild west. We are at a really fun frontier for how to change the face of education. And so what Little Red Fashion is trying to do in that way is not just create books that are enhanced by augmented reality, but also create what I will call, and what people in crypto might call, an on-ramp, right? This is a technology that suffers from complexity in the face of the limited time that teachers have, the limited time that parents have, and the attention spans of kids, which are being engineered by social media algorithms like TikTok. To get shorter and shorter. And so how do we maintain that attention? How do we maintain information retention? And how do we expand that? My philosophy is that it takes a mixed approach. So for example, with Mugur's research that he just talked about, there was a wall between how do we assess the video information retention and how do we assess the AR video retention. I'm interested in what happens when we integrate video into AR experiences to mimic, for example, the idea of going to a museum or going to have a guided lecture series. One of the products that we're working on here at Little Red Fashion on an industry-facing side, so that we leave the kids we're teaching about fashion a better industry, actually uses AR to supplement a DEI, a diversity, equity, and inclusion journal based on PVH research showcasing the many strides fashion still has to take in order to remedy issues for historically marginalized communities of all kinds. And so in my years doing DEI facilitation as some of my consulting work, the fact of the matter is a lot of people don't like to have those conversations in group settings. Sometimes it makes them uncomfortable. Sometimes there are elements of diversity, equity, and inclusion work, particularly in the fashion industry, that have been a challenge for firms both large and small. And so one of the things we're doing is using AR to create video testimonials from people of different historically marginalized groups, so that as you work through Little Red Fashion's DEI journal, you can scan QR codes or use live markers to work your way through the tough questions you're asking yourself, and then privately see the impact of when people are maybe not so welcoming and so open to diversity and what that's like privately. So you're not having that experience within a workshop until you've already worked through it personally and privately. Because I know as a workshop facilitator, it's much easier to go in there when people have been primed or people have done sort of the tougher part of facing some of the uncomfortable truths inherent in DEI work, particularly in an industry like fashion. And then they're much more, I guess you could say, lubed up and ready for those conversations. So that's just another example beyond our books for kids in terms of how we're leveraging augmented reality across our product line. We're also working with archival partners in creating digital activations through trivia decks in concert with historical archives and collections at the Costume Institute at the Metropolitan Museum, as well as various private designer archives that often don't see the light of day. And then, of course, creating 3D models of those extant garments and then putting them through in tandem with both video and static information for trivia cards to make fashion history more accessible to kids across, again, that K through 12 spectrum. And so that's, you know, for me, those three things, the books, the trivia cards, and the DEI journal. For me, this sort of mixed solution only goes halfway, because the other half, and what I think I came here to really impress upon everyone here from sort of like a galvanizing the industry standpoint, is those on-ramps and off-ramps, is the scaffolded support that you give to people facilitating and using these things to get them up to speed faster and more efficiently. So for us as educators for K through 12, that means building lesson plans around that they can plug and play. We need to give time back to educators and homeschool parents and others, not take it away just because we have this fancy piece of flashy technology that is beneficial, but requires all this sort of negotiation to be fluent in. Whatever you're doing in AR, you really have to make sure those on-ramps and off-ramps for getting your audience comfortable with AR and fluent in using it, because that's, I think, where we're going to see that break point and that critical mass as an industry where we have that mass adoption, because until we get those roadmaps, we're not going to have success. So that is my little slice of Little Red Fashion. I hope that you guys enjoyed learning a little bit about what I do, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Thank you, Jonathan. Mugur said, great idea. What software are you using for the design?
So we have partnered with the folks over at Glimpse Group, and if you're familiar with them, they're over in New York City. Glimpse Group and Post Reality, and we're running on their framework because I was very impressed in particular with some of the work that they were doing. And it's funny that you also brought it up, Mugur, the augmented reality academic presentation space. That's actually what got them on my radar, because I wanted to modify that technology to create those trivia decks, because essentially, you know, flat information is flat information. You're taking a 2D thing and using it as an activator for the experience. And so on the basis of that, we just started talking, and they had just been contracted to produce an AR kids book for a different publishing company, Sussman Publishing. I liked what they were doing there, and we just have hit it off. But of course, I'm also here, and I'm also open to collaborations with other AR firms who are looking to, you know, move the needle in that sort of in the immersive education space, particularly for a creative field, because creative play is at the heart of everything we do.
Awesome. Awesome. Another question. Do you feel augmented reality is why do you feel it's the right medium to represent fashion? Like, have you
Sure. I have a couple of reasons for it. For one thing, I think that fashion is an inherently complex creative field, and it's partially why, for example, you don't see a lot of fashion education for children, unlike any other creative field, whether it's music, drama, sports. We don't give a kid a violin when they're 17 and about to go to Juilliard or want to go to Juilliard and say, figure it out. But when it comes to Parsons, Pratt, Central St. Martin's, and other fashion schools, typically those conversations aren't brokered until late middle school, if you're lucky, or high school. In most contexts. And I think bringing that to kids earlier through augmented reality is really powerful. It helps dial down the sort of information overload that a lot of designs people, when they first get in, are like, they're just overloaded with, how do I start? Where do I start? Do I want to be a designer? Do I want to be an editor? Do I want to, how many career paths are we really talking about when we talk about fashion? It's not just designers. We're talking about dozens of careers. I interview them on my podcast all the time. And you might want to be a curator. You might want to be in STEM developing nanotextiles. Who knows? You're a kid. And our job is to facilitate their dreams. And AR makes that much easier. And you can fold it all the way up into a book. It takes complexity and dials it in. And so I think fashion is particularly well suited to that, especially because it is visually rich, especially because you can tie together different resources in a cohesive structure, aka a storybook. And because in the future, these kids that I'm educating now, they will need to be hyperfluent in whatever comes after the AR we can even conceive of now. So getting their feet wet with immersive technologies of that nature when they're younger is only going to benefit them in the long run.
What are some of the skills required in order to be in the fashion industry? And do you foresee like the skill of being able to create augmented reality as being an essential component of being involved in the industry?
Oh, absolutely. I think a good testament to that is Jeferson, right? Like everything that he just showed in his portfolio that was so fantastic, a lot of it has applications for if you want to be creating AR for fashion brands of the future in ways that we can't even envision now. It probably helps that you're familiar with the tech. It probably helps that it's something that has already helped you learn about the thing that you're interested in. As I often say, dive down the rabbit hole. Nothing like AR enables that sort of digital rabbit hole experience quite like anything AR or VR. And so I think fashion, again, is like particularly well suited to that sort of exploration, and the lessons that we learn while doing this work can be applied then to any creative field as well, creating unique educational feedback loops that we don't have yet.
Awesome. And is one more question. Is there a particular area in fashion that your book aims to tackle? Is it like the fast fashion or the more fashion?
We aim to tackle all of them. We have a 360-degree view. Part of what drew Fern Malice and the CFDA, for those of unaware, New York Fashion Week the modern New York Fashion Week was invented by Fern Malice, originally called 7th on 6th. And so she's been a great champion of our work, particularly because we have a big tent philosophy on what fashion really is. I think it suffers as an industry from sort of the celebrity chef problem. When people see shows like Project Runway making the cut, Next in Fashion, and think, oh, okay, if you're not a designer, what are you doing? You have technical designers, regular fashion designers, merchandisers, marketers. Our goal is to make every career path that a kid might want within fashion and fashion adjacent design fields, or even operations, marketing, and management, and make that come alive for them. And so AR lets us do that, and our universe of characters does as well. So
that's awesome. Michael Slade bought the book and he looks forward to exploring it. He wrote
awesome. Thanks so much. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much for joining, Jonathan. It was great having you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right. Hope to see you again soon.
For sure.
Awesome. Cool. Next up, I'm honored to have Jeremy Nelson with us. He leads the XR initiative at the University of Michigan, which is a big role. So it's really great to have him here. They're focused on bringing XR technologies for teaching and learning to all 19 schools and colleges in the Ann Arbor campus, as well as bringing XR, including augmented reality, to their over 10 million global learners. Their initiative works with faculty to reimagine how they teach courses using technologies such as augmented and virtual reality for skill building, engineering, nursing, medicine, and social sciences. Prior to joining the University of Michigan. Jeremy was the co-founder and managing partner for AFIA Inc., an Ann Arbor-based healthcare consulting firm that worked with organizations across the country to assist in selecting and implementing technology solutions to improve processes and patient experiences. And with that, it's an honor to have you here, Jeremy. I look forward to learning more about your work.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. You just did like my first 3 slides, so that should save us some time. I appreciate that. Let me share the screen. Okay, cool. Does that look good? Great, thanks. Appreciate the time and everyone's interest in this work. So yeah, I work at the University of Michigan in a group called the Center for Academic Innovation. We're a group on campus that's really focused on solving big, complex challenges and providing personalized learning at scale. And we're designing the future through education, research, innovation, experimentation, and iteration. We work in a few different areas, so we're not faculty. We don't have faculty on staff, but we sit at the provost's office, which, if you know much about higher ed, it's kind of like the COO of the institution from the academic standpoint. And so we're focused on curricular innovation, working with faculty to innovate on how they teach. We have a team that builds educational technology tools, and we look at how people learn and what these large systems can do, all kind of underpinned with, we're a public institution, so making sure everyone has equitable access to learning. And one of the ways we do that is creating these massive open online courses. So things like on Coursera or edX, you may have seen these MOOCs. We've produced over 200 in the last 8 years. Over 10 million learners have taken those. Most of them are free. And so these are available to any University of Michigan faculty, alumni, students, or staff, global learners. And now a lot of companies are now licensing this content for their employee development. Like Andy mentioned, we're focused. So this started about 3.5 years ago, really focused around bringing XR technologies for teaching and learning to our Ann Arbor campus. We had 3 main goals: bring these on campus, working with faculty in our 19 schools and colleges, integrate them to our online curricula, which we knew was going to be a challenge right out of the gate, and then create innovative public-private partnerships. So when we started, I had about 5.5 months of runway before COVID hit. So we got some good momentum going, and then just some interesting opportunities popped up. We had some really interesting work already happening here. Some folks in our film department had recreated the last scene to Citizen Kane in VR, and so students can go into a headset and refilm the last scene of the movie. We actually helped with this. There were folks in our med school, so students weren't able to do their medical ward rounds, where the med students follow a physician around and go into each room and kind of learn about the cases during peak COVID. And so we helped facilitate getting a HoloLens 2 set up so one faculty could go into the patient room and then stream out the whole session, so all the med students could join on a Teams or Zoom call to continue their ward rounds. Did some really cool collaborations with folks in London and the UK around that. And then maybe on the other far end of the spectrum, we have faculty in our English department teaching courses called Novel and Virtual Realities. In her perspective, our novels have been immersive technologies for hundreds of years. You just had to use your mind to imagine these spaces and places. Now that we can place people and create these immersive environments, what does that do to narrative and storytelling and perspective? We have an XR graduate certificate program at the university. So anybody in a master's program can enroll in an XR graduate certificate. They take 12 credits. They do a capstone project, an internship, and there's a number of schools that offer courses throughout their program. We did create an XR for everybody open online course called, it's really in 3 courses around the knowing, doing, and shaping the future of XR. This launched on Coursera in December of 2020. We've had over 10,000 people enroll in this course to date, which is pretty cool. And so here's a little bit of the production. So we have a team of media designers and video studios. So we produce a lot of these courses. So it's not just going into the faculty's classroom and filming them lecturing. We help them reimagine how they teach the class. So we're using some mixed reality here. He's teaching about the reality augmented virtual reality spectrum and what this whole concept is. We created a whole podcast during COVID, just talking about a lot of the faculty here that were already doing things. We had 27 episodes. So a number of folks were already kind of teaching or exploring in this space. Some really cool, I'll focus more on the AR stuff, but some cool work in our dental school where faculty were visualizing pain. I don't have any slides here on that, but they had a patient hooked up to an EEG and a HoloLens set up so they could visualize a brain superimposition over the skull and see where the pain was lighting up. And so they could see different colors where that lit up on their skulls. So they could help them direct how they might provide treatment. And so one of the ways we've made this successful is we follow an innovation fund approach. So we have funding and we seed projects across campus. And so faculty pitch us on ideas and we fund those through in-kind support and or funding. And so I hired a team of 2 developers, a 3D artist, a project manager, and then we've had a number of students. We won an Epic Games mega grant a few years ago to hire students and teach them how to build XR with Unreal Engine, which helped kickstart us. We've hired almost, I'll get to it in a second, almost 50 students over the last 3 years. And so as of today, we've received 40 proposals from faculty. We funded 29 of those projects from 17 of the 19 schools. So a lot of interest in architecture, engineering, our College of Literature, Science and the Arts, nursing, med school, dentistry. So a lot of these areas that we're kind of already thinking in 3D or thinking spatially already leaned in, but interest from the law school and our School of Art and Design, as you might imagine, pharmacy, School of Ed, kinesiology, areas like that. One of the ways we've been most successful is hiring these student fellows. So we hire them, we pay them. So the mega grant helped with that, but we also have funding to hire them. They help us with storyboarding, with prototyping. Jackson's there making his MetaHuman. So we're testing out some things like that. And they come from all over campus, our architecture, art and design, business school, engineering, School of Information, School of Music, theater and dance. They make some AR filters for our U of M social. And so we've had students kind of work on that have been out. We finally have a football team again that's competitive. Not quite to the top where we want yet, but getting closer. It's been a long road the last 15, 20 years. When we started, we funded 8 projects in 2020, 4 of them large VR projects. I won't spend a lot of time on these because I know more AR. But this was really for us to kind of develop a process for developing the software and following standard software development processes. We do source control, we use Jira, we do development like sprints, status reports. So we kind of follow a commercial, software development process. We built a chemotherapy simulation for nursing students. So it's available on the Oculus App Lab today. We had a nuclear reactor on campus that was active for about 50 years. It was decommissioned in 2003. So we built a digital twin of this. The really cool part of this was 2 freshman engineering students did all the 3D modeling in SolidWorks, which was insane because they just took photographs and some sketches. I mean, there weren't really any architectural plans from the 50s that we could access, and then modeled that. And they worked with our team to build the learning design and the interaction. So now students can go in and run simulations and like go into the reactor pool and see what's happening. Things you wouldn't do because you would die. And it was funny because we showed this early version to some of the faculty in nuclear engineering, and they're like, it never looked that clean. That place was always dirty and there were wires hanging all over. So one of our guys went in and started scratching the pipes and, putting cables and things on the ground to make it look more realistic. We built a VR physics lab for physics students. Instead of launching hockey pucks across the room, they could launch rockets on Earth, Mars, and the Moon, see how different effects of gravity impact that. And then construction architecture. Actually, we're doing a lot of, so this was the class where they teach about how to build with glass, steel, concrete, and wood. So the faculty would give a lecture one day, and then they go into the VR lab another day, and they can explore this kind of whole museum style. They do these design challenges. This was a great collaboration with some of our students that were architects. They built all the 3D models and did all the rendering, and then they worked with our team for the interaction design. I don't have slides here, but we have a number of other faculty working within our College of Architecture. They're using HoloLens and working with robots to do co-building. And so the HoloLens will project how that they should interact with the robots and like how to place the equipment, and then the robots assemble it together. So they're using some, mixed reality, augmented reality, depending on how you want to call it, how pure you are in the space. But some pretty cool. They said basically things that used to take the people 2 to 3 days, they can do within an hour now because the headset's just helping them align with precision, even though the HoloLens isn't millimeter precision with some of the design and build they were doing is really helpful. In 21, we did another round of funding. We funded 3 more HoloLens, 2 projects, a couple I just mentioned there. We did a mobile AR project with ZapWorks and folks in architecture to kind of build this garden. So a lot of the students build these 3D models and designs. So they were kind of building them and placing them around the campus. And then we did a lot of 360 video projects where we found a authoring tool, a web-based authoring tool that lets you create interactive elements on top of the 360. And it had voice recognition and pretty easy kind of story navigation. Kind of call that VR Lite, the 360, but it got a lot of the folks interested in kind of a lot of the work we do is try to find faculty or people interested in this and then just really supercharge them with support and devices and, access to applications and platforms like that. I won't show this video, but we had 2 students build copy of our Diag, which is the center of our campus. They 3D modeled that. They worked with Google Street View and pulled in all the data and then modeled that. We placed it up on AltSpace, which will be gone in a couple of weeks. But we're looking at porting that to different platforms like Spatial and others. Some really exciting work we're doing with the nursing school. So during, I don't know how much people are tracking this, but we're on slate for about 2 million nurses short in the US in the next year. And one of the challenges that the nursing school had is they have this whole simulation center. They're just having a hard time keeping enough faculty to train all the nurses and provide the level of skill development that they need. So they asked us if we could partner to come up with a way to use this technology to support that. So we had a few HoloLens 2s that we loaned them and started working with Microsoft Dynamics 365 Guides, which is an authoring tool. And so they already had the procedures, they were already documented, but we worked with them where now the students can walk into the simulation center, look at a QR code, and it projects up into their view how to do, there's about 12 different procedures we have. And here's a view of this is a lumbar puncture. So this is the point of view of one of the learners. So you can import images, videos, text. So it's describing where between L3 and L4, we've got a 3D model of a spine, placed it on the mannequin. So they're all hands-free. They can feel what the mannequin looks like. They're not holding up a device. Shows them which instrument to pull out, kind of where to place it. And so now they've run a few hundred students through that. Early findings are they've reduced faculty time by 75%. And student confidence is doubled, basically because they can make all the mistakes without somebody. Before, there would be one faculty over 2 or 3 students, like watching them, they would get nervous if they didn't know how to do it. Now they just do it as many times as they want, self-directed in the headset. When they're done, they take it off and they're like, okay, now come test me. So really strong interest across a number of different institutions. We're in discussions with the National Health Service in the UK about using technology like this to train their healthcare workforce. When they Brexited, one of the biggest challenges they had was about 30% of their workforce was from the EU, from the healthcare workforce, and they didn't come back. And so now they've been trying to figure out how do they upskill all of these workers. And so we're in discussions with them about piloting some of this technology over there. Pretty cool. Doing a lot of work with different organizations, other universities. I talked about the National Health Service. We partnered with Maryland to make a big medical XR grant, NSF grant, working with the XR Association and the Bipartisan Policy Center to look at legislation and how to influence some of that, which I know is an uphill banging your head against the wall battle, but they did get immersive technologies added into one of the latest funding bills, which will open up opportunities for grants down the road. We have a little bit more. We have about 100 headsets now across campus that we can check out to students. We have clean boxes. We have whole protocols to clean them, and been quite successful in having students access this technology over the last couple of years. And we have an annual XR Summit. We're hosting our 3rd annual XR Summit, April 18th and 19th in Ann Arbor. It's open to the public. We'll live stream out some of the sessions and talks, but it's really about educating the community here, headsets and applications and things for folks to try out. There'll be a whole exhibit hall in the student showcase. I won't show this. I don't want to the way play about it, but we are moving into, since we do a lot of video, we are moving in, we're building an LED XR stage. So this whole concept of virtual production to create next generation of online content. And within that, we have some AR. Space ahead here. So I have a sensor in my hand and I can actually interact with 3D digital objects as I'm teaching about them. And now we did partner with Coursera last year to create 10 XR enhanced online courses and looking at things like interactive 360 video, mobile AR, virtual production, and immersive VR. And so we're about to launch a course later this year called the Nurse's Toolkit. We'll have mobile AR experiences involved in that course. So we're going to see at scale, how well does this, how do people use it? Any technical issues? Does it help with the learning journey? We're most likely going to use 8th Wall at this point to build that out and scale it. All right, right on time. Maybe a minute or two for questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy, for the excellent presentation. Question to start it off. Sorry, I have a few here. So are the grants primarily for students, or they're also for faculty as well?
Primarily for faculty. So each project has to have a faculty lead to fund them, but we encourage them to include budget to hire students to work on it. And then on our side, independently, we hire students that may or may not work on those projects.
Very cool. Do the projects that the students and faculty are working on, do they get to test the projects within classroom environments?
Yeah, so a lot of them, you know, that's what we're trying to explore is like how well do these work for different learning experiences. And we had actually a couple meetings today with folks in our pharmacy department, medicinal chemistry, to look at, they're really interested in this mixed reality for protein development and chemical bonding and molecules to see it kind of mixed reality in the space and like multi-user. How is that going to impact how these students understand how this chemistry works?
Oh, very cool. Now, from your perspective, and Mugur, feel free to add on to this, given your experience as well. So you must be looking at the current classroom environment, and what do you feel about the way students are currently learning, and where do you see that to start to shift over the course of the next 5-10 years potentially?
Yeah, I mean, it's so domain specific, right? If you're learning history versus nursing versus dentistry, and even within that, like I think VR is going to have a place, right? It's really good for this like short training and these simulations, and you know, maybe some of the social stuff. I don't know. I just don't see a world where people are stuck in a headset unless we burn up the planet and it's like total dystopia. But I think that, you know, people that have mobility challenges or in long-term care facilities or in the hospital, like it could be a good escape use for that. I think the AR will have more interesting opportunities. The headsets are still, you know, batteries don't last that long. They're clunky, they're expensive. You know, there's still physics to figure out so they don't burn your face. But I think depending on what you're trying to learn, these technologies can really support in those different areas. But for like a whole class or whole semester, it seems hard to imagine what that would look like at this point. It'll be a mix, I think.
I understand. Mugur, do you have thoughts on that as well?
Yes, I totally agree with Jeremy here. And I'm thinking that the next leap will be when we're going to be moving from this to wearing something like this for the same thing. Because right now, this is that, you know, the technology is still a big impediment in terms of implementing any kind of virtual or augmented reality in learning environments.
Yeah, and lots of concerns about the data's privacy and security.
Correct.
There was just a study out last week from UC Berkeley that with 100 seconds of Beat Saber, just by the way your head moves and your hands move, they can identify you with 95% certainty.
Wow.
100 seconds. It's barely getting past the menu.
And that's not even biometrics or any of that, right?
Not even any of the fancy stuff. That's literally 3 points.
Wow.
Yeah, and if you think about the new Meta Quest Pro that has eye tracking and facial emotion recognition built into it. So
Yeah.
And when your business model is to sell my personal data, it just becomes a conflict of how important safe security is.
yeah.
What's the process like for receiving the grants as a teacher, Jeremy?
Yeah, so we have a whole, we usually consult with faculty ahead of time to kind of talk through the ideas and help kind of shape their discussion. And then we have a whole application form where they have to describe really the key points for like, what are your learning goals and objectives? How are we going to measure this? How are we going to implement in the class? What sort of support do you need? Whether some of it's just completely experimental, like the nuclear reactor, or whether others is more, a little easier, like with the nursing skill-based stuff, a little more tactical.
Understood. And are there a board of folks on the XR team at the university?
Yeah, so we have kind of a cross-disciplinary team of our learning designers, our XR folks, some of our other program operations people.
It seems like a really nice initiative.
Yeah, it's been good. It's still, some stuff picks up real fast. Others, like, we hadn't heard anything from chemistry or biology. And like in the last week, I've heard like from 4 different faculty, like, hey, could we check out this stuff? Yeah, where you been?
Have you seen more folks interested in your work recently?
I mean, the money always helps, right?
Yeah, sure,
From
sure.
like, they don't have to get their own budget to do this. I think we're starting to see more momentum now that we have devices and things that they don't have to go purchase, and we can help them set it up and how to use it. So we'll actually go to the classes, and like, even these VR, like you mentioned, like, there's no normative context. You can't just give it to somebody who's never used it before. And like, maybe if they're gamers and they can figure stuff out, but for the most of the folks, they've never tried this. They don't know what to click. They hold the controllers upside down. It's still a bit of effort.
Yeah, and let's not forget the physiological impact of being in a virtual immersive visual environment. I mean, some people get dizzy and
yeah, they just can't do it. I mean,
yes,
the HoloLens
exactly.
easier, shorter field of view. The Magic Leap, if you wear glasses, you have problems because it doesn't fit over your glasses. Things like, there's just some real physical challenges.
Question actually I have for both of you guys. Do you have any issues creating the user experience for these devices, since it's such new technology?
Oh yeah,
Jeremy, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there's not 40 years of research like we have with web and 2D application. So designing in 3D space is a little more challenging. That's we try to include these user experience design. We do the storyboarding and the scripting and kind of mapping it out, prototyping ahead of time, but still, like, a lot of considerations depending on who's developing it.
Awesome.
And also, let's not forget the challenges of not being a game designer, so to speak. So the virtual reality that you see, of course, because of the limitation of software, the limitation of budgets within academia, they won't be at the level that you see in a game. And we found out that sometimes this will just push people back, saying that it was not good enough. So that's another element that needs to be taken into consideration. And like Jeremy says, money always helps.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Jeremy, for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure to hear from your experience.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
Sure. And Mugur, thank you as well for joining. It was really nice having you.
It was great. Thank you, guys.
It was a real pleasure. And thank you, everyone, for joining New York Augmented Reality tonight. Jeremy, could you send the link for the XR Summit on the chat, please?
Yes. 1 second.
Thank you, as well as some contact information. That would be great.
Yeah, the registration link will be open at the end of the week, but here's the Here's the save the date info right
Yeah.
now.
Okay, that's great.
We were just
And-
finalizing some speakers and exhibitors. So
And this is-
Jeremy, I may send you an email.
yeah, I'd love to talk. Sorry, I missed
Yeah. Mhm.
missed your talk. I had little people that have been home for these ice storms for too long and had to. we lost a lot of power out here last week. There were a lot of ice here in Michigan.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'm so glad both of you were here, and I'm glad you'll get the chance to talk. So cool. Thank you guys so much. Thanks everyone for joining the New York Augmented Reality Meetup tonight, and we look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thank you very
for-
much, Andy, for organizing this.
Yeah,
It was
thank
a
you so
pleasure.
much, guys. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
It's really good to see you. Glad everyone is here. Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.